CWPA Remote Professional Edition, where we take a look at water polo players and where they are today.
This woman was a member of the Claremont Mudd Scripps Athena's women's varsity water polo team. After graduating in 2015 with a degree in environment, economics, and politics, she began her working career as an account rep at CBS Interactive. Now, she is the major accounts manager at a global cybersecurity company. I'm so very pleased to be joined today by Haley Connor. Haley, thanks so much for agreeing to appear on CWPA Remote.
Thank you so much, George. Pleasure to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. And tell us how and why did you end up choosing Claremont McKenna?
It's a very good question and actually kind of a funny story. So I went to I went to high school in Palo Alto. I started playing water polo because my younger brother was actually playing, and obviously as a competitive family, couldn't let him have all the fun. So I loved the sport. I knew I wanted to play in college. I was the captain of my high school team. And so when it came to deciding where I wanted to go, water polo really was a driving factor for me. I also wanted a school where I could have that balance between an academic life and a social life and be able to play the sport that I loved. So Claremont ended up being an awesome school for that. I also originally wanted to study biology. They had a pretty strong science program. And as soon as I met Greg Lonzo, the coach at the time and still current coach of the CMC team, as well as the extended teammates, I knew that was the school for me. I fell in love on my first recruiting trip.
And do you remember your first practice or your first week of practices?
Absolutely terrifying. A bunch of older girls, lots of swim sets. Obviously being away from home was very challenging. I think that we spent probably 4 to 6 hours a day during that training. We called it Hell Week at the time, but during that training process. And what I will say is we had the opportunity to come back early being a spring sport. So it was a great chance to really get to know the other girls on the team. And I think one of the hardest parts of going to college is you're away from home for the first time. So how do you develop that family and that sense of camaraderie? And I think having that team, even though Lonzo pushed us to the extremes with our workouts, being in it with other people was absolutely critical. And they're still some of my dearest friends. So I'm very fortunate to have had that opportunity.
And how about your first game?
Well, I'm pretty sure we played Laverne, and my heart was racing. It was one of those experiences where you don't know what to expect. Fortunately, with having played in Junior Olympics and playing in high school, you knew that it was going to be competitive. But it was the first time that I felt like there was a lot of pressure. I think we ended up winning that game, if I recall correctly. But my team at the time was very young, and we'd only had the chance to really play together for 3 or 4 weeks. So definitely missteps here and there. We were trying to figure out who plays in what kind of way. But that only developed over the years.
And first goal?
Oh man, I don't even recall when that happened.
That's all right.
Yeah, probably the third game I played in. I was definitely more of a defensive player. So my job was let's help the goalie, let's not get scored on, and let's set my teammates up and be there for the assist. So I can't even remember the first goal that I scored, but I think that speaks to how strong the rest of my teammates were and just the fact that we operated as one unit. We could still win games even if I wasn't the one scoring.
Okay. And what are your single best or a couple of the best memories of your collegiate career with the Athenas?
Ups and downs. I think when we started, as I mentioned, it was a very young team. So I think of our starting lineup, 5 of the 6 were either freshmen or sophomores. So being able to grow and as the Athenas, I don't believe had gone into the playoffs for the SCIAC championships leading up to the point, I believe my freshman or sophomore year. So seeing us develop as a team and really work together and become a cohesive unit, and to go from getting 3rd place my freshman year to getting 2nd place my sophomore year. Unfortunately, we never ended up winning SCIACs, but just being able to grow as a team and to see everyone grow, not just in the pool, but outside of it is definitely a big, favorite memory for me. The other big one, I think, was actually outside of the pool. It was the days when we didn't actually play water polo and we went and played basketball in the gym. Not sure if you've seen water athletes or aquatic athletes attempt to play land sports, but
unfortunately, I have.
It's not a good one, is it?
No, it's not pretty many times.
No, I mean, we have no sense of how to stop moving when you're running. And I personally broke 2 fingers. I think more people were injured playing basketball than in my 4 years playing water polo. But again, it was the fun that we could have both in the pool and out of the pool that I definitely remember and miss to this day.
Okay. And any disappointments, major ones that you remember?
Senior year, final year, that's the year you're going to win it. You've put 4 years into it. And we went into the semifinals game and ended up losing by a goal. And it was that, I think, was one of the toughest losses I've ever had, because not only was that our last chance to get a title, but that was the moment I realized, holy cow, I'm done playing water polo. And this is what I've known myself to be for years and years and years. What do I do now? So that was a really, I think, eye-opening experience. And when I look back, I'm so thankful to have been a part of a team and to grow with those girls and to develop under Lonzo's leadership. But it's also inspired me, I think, in my career today, in terms of I need to do something that I'm passionate about and I care about. And I want to identify with the same way that I loved and cared about water polo.
All right. And final about your water polo career, any unusual or funny stories that you can say on air?
A lot off air. On air, let's think. Well, I mean, some of my favorite memories with the team were definitely, again, outside of the pool. I think when we would leave practice and we would go to the dining hall and we would eat everything in sight. One of the key takeaways, we showed up late to the dining hall and there were 4 massive, like Baskin-Robbins size cartons of ice cream left. And we managed to steal all 4 of those cartons so that the team could share it outside. We were not allowed back in the dining hall for a few weeks, but you have to get into trouble here and there.
True. Well, at least you went for ice cream. That's a good trouble.
Yeah. For now, I couldn't do it today.
Yeah, not today. Before we get into where you are now, I'm really interested in how you go from environment, economics, and politics as a major into the digital world with CBS Interactive.
It's a very good question. I think, like a lot of people, I had no idea what I wanted to do after school. I was extremely passionate about environmental studies. Originally, I went in as a biology major. Claremont has a very strong econ and finance program. So I had the opportunity to kind of transform over the years to not just biology, but how does this apply from a finance and economics perspective. So for me, I'm still very passionate about environmental preservation and environmental politics, but I got to a point where I said, I don't know if I want to go into consulting. I just don't really know what I'm passionate about. All I had known was I'm a water polo player. That's what I do. And so what I think I derived from playing a team sport for so long is I want to do something that I care about. I want to work with a team that I believe supports me and that I can work closely with. And I want to do something that allows me to be competitive and to harness that competitive drive that I think was innate and had obviously grown over the years of playing water polo. So I probably did 10 to 15 informational interviews, if not more, and ended up meeting a woman by the name of Katie Kulik, who at the time was the vice president of sales at CBS Interactive. So I had interned with them. I loved the competitive nature of selling. And I was fortunate enough, after interning with them the summer of my junior year, to be offered a full-time position. So I decided to take a step back from the environmental passions and take what I had loved about water polo, the teamwork and the competitive drive, and channel that into digital advertising sales. So not an obvious transition, I would say.
Yeah, and you had to transition from being the person preventing goals to now you had to score. You close that deal.
Yeah, we're not playing defense anymore. It's all offense now.
It's all about scoring. So, what were your specific responsibilities? And you held a couple of positions at CBS Interactive. Why don't you take our viewers through that?
Definitely. So when I started with CBS, I was in more of, I guess, what we would call a corporate sales or an inside sales role. So I was supporting an account manager. My role, I was an account representative, is what it was called at the time. So my responsibility was go find new clients, go knock on doors, people that haven't talked to us before. Let's go identify new customers. Love a good challenge. So what I had the opportunity to do was figure out what these different companies were trying to market, what they were trying to sell. And once I could articulate the value of being a part of or advertising with CBS Interactive, there was a broad portfolio that has since expanded. They're now Viacom CBS, but I was able to take them from that initial conversation of driving value in terms of what CBS could provide in terms of visibility and reach, and then ultimately craft a proposal and a sales campaign and different tactics in terms of how we would reach consumers interested in different technologies, and then finally close the deal. So when I started, it was much more of what we called net new clients or white space clients. And then over time, I was promoted into a higher role handling some of our bigger customers, and then finally into a field sales role where I was actually the face of the company, managing some of the biggest clients across Mercedes and Canon and Comcast. So 3 years of a lot of hard work and a lot of terrible sales calls, and then also some big wins, which propelled me in my career.
Okay, and then you moved on from there and changed jobs, changed companies, and at least on the surface, it appears that it was a bit of a step backwards in job title. Take us through that.
Yeah. That was a very tough decision. What I realized, I had been with CBS for about 3.5 years, including my internship. And again, I loved being part of a team. I learned so much about the sales process, but I didn't have that passion in terms of what I was selling. And I keep going back to the way that I felt about water polo. I loved being able to tell people I'm a water polo player. That's what I do. And so, again, I started doing some informational interviews, and the more I learned about cybersecurity and obviously being in advertising sales, I had visibility into the massive amount of data that we have on consumers, and the fact that our emails and our text messages at times are being read and not fully encrypted. That was so terrifying to me. That's when I said, I need to go do that. I need to go figure out how we keep people safe. And that's where I identified an opportunity, and again, had the pleasure of speaking with a woman by the name of Amy Slater. She was the vice president of corporate sales. And what she said was, hey, we have a job opening. You'll, to your point, have to take a step back. But what I'll say is it's going to set you up to make massive strides further in your career. So for me, I was willing to take that step back to go learn an entirely new industry because I was passionate about what we were doing. The company was fascinating, and all of the people that I had the privilege and pleasure of speaking with were just honestly so much smarter than I am and that I was at the time. So I wanted to be surrounded by people that were going to challenge me each and every day.
Okay, and the company name is your city name, and
yes, that would help.
So is that just a coincidence?
Yes, funny enough. So the company is Palo Alto Networks, and I actually work for them out of New York City. So funny enough, love my hometown of Palo Alto. Obviously, couldn't stay away, but I think I love the hustle and bustle of New York City more, but now it's fantastic. My entire family still lives in California, so it gives me an excuse to come home from time to time. Being in New York City has also given me the opportunity to re-engage with the sport I love. I've now had the opportunity to play with the New York Athletic Club, a bunch of girls, funny enough, that I saw throughout my collegiate career and other people that I've connected with since, my time playing Stanford Club in high school. So it's been absolutely amazing to be able to get in the pool again and share this passion with other girls that feel the same way.
So you're a major accounts manager there now. Why don't you tell us what a typical work week is for Haley Connor?
Yeah, definitely. So to your point, took a step back, moving over to Palo Alto. I was able to be promoted at the start of our new fiscal year in August. So huge step up to go from that corporate role into a field role at Palo Alto. It's what I had worked for, and that was the whole intent moving over. From a day-to-day perspective, a lot of my conversations are with the security teams of Fortune 500 companies. I currently manage or represent 6 of the largest retailers and manufacturing companies in the U.S. currently. So my job on a day-to-day is to basically ensure that those companies are secure, that the data, whether that resides in their data centers or, as we see a lot of companies, especially on the retail side, go through this digital transformation, especially with COVID, people are working from home. How do we make sure that those employees and those users are secure, whether they're living in the office or working from home on their laptops? So a lot of it is helping these companies understand whether or not they are secure, especially as they expand through cloud infrastructure and on the internet, through conversations with both security and networking teams. So very technical. I have an engineering team that supports me. So it's how do we translate the security requirements and the business objectives and leverage Palo Alto Networks technology in order to make sure those individuals and those companies are secure.
Okay, well, obviously you're not going to give away the trade secrets of the company on how you do that. So where does Haley go from here?
Oh, wow, that I have not thought through yet. I'm 6 months into this role. I am challenged each and every day. There's, as cybersecurity continues to expand, and especially Palo Alto Networks, we've made significant acquisitions over the last 18 months. So I continue to be challenged to keep up with an industry that's ever changing, with what we call bad actors or potential hackers, and the malicious activities that they may be doing within our customers. So I think for now, it's continuing to understand how this industry is going to evolve, how I can better support my customers and ensure that they're secure, all while closing big deals and helping drive the bottom line.
Okay, well, we've talked a bit about your college career in water polo, and we've now talked a bit about your working career. Be interested to hear how you feel that your college water polo career has impacted your working career.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's definitely impacted it in a lot of ways. I think one of the biggest, and this is probably common across the board, but that idea of resiliency. I can think back when I had originally gone for a promotion at CBS. I worked hard. I had the numbers to showcase it. I was so confident that I was going to get that first promotion, and I didn't. And it reminds me of playing that first water polo game against Laverne. Mm-hmm. I went through those hell weeks, put all the hours in. I went to weight training, thought I was going to get that starting position, and I didn't get called. And when I think back, I had a choice then and there. Do I throw a tantrum? Do I get upset that I wasn't selected as a starter, or that I didn't get this job? Or is this an opportunity for me to reevaluate how much work I'm actually putting in and become more mentally and physically tough? And so I think as athletes, we're constantly tested, because you're not going to win every game, but you need to go in with the mindset that winning is an expected behavior, but also what can you take away from those losses? And I think looking back, obviously not getting that starting role was brutal, but I started every game after that for the rest of my college career because I put the time and effort in. And going back to CBS, I didn't get that job, but I got the next job, and that was the one that brought me to New York and started a brand new chapter in my life.
Well, that's a great way to point out what we're looking for, in this series, and that is that are there specific instances in your college water polo career that you were able to look at and say, you know what, I can apply the lesson from that specific instance to this thing that's happening in my working career and help me get through this situation, with a positive resolution. So I thank you for doing that. I got a question for you that I'm going to ask backwards to the way interviewers normally ask the question.
Okay.
Normally, interviewers like to ask the question of, so what would you say to your younger self right now? But I'd like to know what Haley Connor, the Claremont water polo player, would say to Haley Connor, the global cybersecurity expert.
That's a good one. I love that question. I think that one of the big lessons, and I'm having to relearn it now, is, and I'm going to butcher this because I don't know who actually quoted this, but I love the quote that luck is where opportunity meets preparation. And there are so many games where you tip a ball in, or you manage to kick a ball and catch it and score. And everyone says, wow, that was so lucky. But you trained hard, you worked hard, you're in that position, you scored the goal because of all of the back or the legwork that you put into it. And I think in my career, there are times that people have said, wow, you're so lucky, or you're so lucky you closed that deal, or you're so lucky you got that job. And it's a constant reminder that, sure, there is a bit of luck in life, but you have to be in the right place at the right time for that luck to actually come to fruition.
Well, that's well said. So last question. We have high school students that play water polo that are looking at college, probably along with their parents. And we have current college students that are watching that are looking at postgraduate working careers. What advice would you have for these people in both areas? The high schoolers looking to select college and go to college and play water polo or not play water polo, and then those looking at careers beyond.
One of the things that I think worked so well for me was having the opportunity to speak to so many different people from very different backgrounds. I think when I was going through the college admissions process, I looked at 25 plus schools. Half of them I was going to play water polo. The other half I was just going for academic purposes. And when it came time to, at least on the school front, decide, I had to choose, did I want to play water polo? What is it that I wanted to study? So I stack ranked the things that were most important to me. That ended up being, I want to play water polo. I want to study biology. And I want to be able to have balance in my life. I don't want it to be 100% water polo or 100% academics. Ultimately, that's why I chose Claremont. But again, going to see those different schools, which of course is challenging right now, given the pandemic and the lack of ability to travel. But I think just speaking to a broad population, definitely tuning into podcasts like this or people that have gone through the process before can definitely help open your eyes to new opportunities you maybe didn't know of or didn't see before. And I think from a work perspective, similar situation applies. I was an environmental economics and politics major. I went into advertising, and now I'm a cybersecurity professional. None of that makes sense on a linear path, but in having conversations with the people that have gone through this before me and doing my research and trying to understand, what I'm passionate about, and passion is a tough word, but the things that motivate me, I think that's where you find the work or the school that you ultimately fall in love with.
Well, that's great advice to everybody. She followed up her very successful defensive-oriented career at Claremont Mudd Scripps to become a cybersecurity global professional. And Haley Connor has been my guest today on CWPA Remote. Haley, thanks so much for taking the time to share your insights into how a college water polo career can impact a ultimate working career.
Definitely. Thank you, George. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure here too. Until next time on CWPA Remote, this is George Gross Jr. wishing all of our listeners the very best in and out of the pool.